Okay, folks, I want to share this again really quick from what I captured the other day looking over Lake Mead foothills. This was on the 26th of March, and this rather large object here drifted in. And I do have a time lapse video. Let me see if I can get to that really quick. There is a time lapse video here that does show it as it moved in because I had another camera, I had the iPad running, recording it on the time lapse. And again, this is looking toward the east. You got Hoover Dam over this way too, and several photovoltaic solar array fields as well. So it's kind of curious. Here you can see it coming up. Just wait for it. And it comes drifting in really quick because this is a time lapse, of course. It was actually moving a lot slower there. It's moving in right there. And it just hovered over there for at least a half hour from what I could observe. And I slowed it down here. You can see it's a rather large structure. And it just stayed over there and hovered for at least a half hour, like I said, because I'm repetitive. I'll say it again, at least a half hour. And again, because I'm repetitive, I'll say it again. It was like over towards the Hoover Dam area and where those big solar array fields and stuff are. So, gotta wonder, did they drift something in and charge it up for a little bit, and then it drifted off towards the east? And I do have another time lapse here that was right after this one. I reset the time lapse to try to capture its movement from the point that I had recorded it with the phone, and you can see how it just kind of looks like it shifts and turns and heads more east than heading north. Because when it moved in from the south, it moved in and then just kind of hovered over that way toward the east. And I'm wondering if maybe it wasn't really just hovering in one place. It was just moving away from us. The profile of it was still visible when it was sitting over there because it was just moving off toward, the east. Oh, there's the double plane. That was kind of interesting to capture too. I didn't know what to think about it because I thought maybe my eyes were like, I was doing like a double vision thing or something from staring at the sky. But then when I looked at it, a little bit closer, it was actually two planes. Let's see if I can get that to go back to that spot. There it is. Yeah, you can see it looked like they were just one blob, and then all of a sudden I saw another coming out. I'm like, well, that one doesn't have a contrail though. You got one, and they look like they're up at about the same height, just in different positions in the sky. But again, I thought it was having double vision, but no, that's a separate plane. There's two planes up there right about the same height, and you got one spewing out here, but this one's got absolutely nothing. You gotta wonder what's up with that. I don't know. Anyway, back to this drifter thingy. Anyway, so maybe it wasn't just hovering there. Maybe it had gotten into a position and then it banked off toward the east. Because in the time lapse after, and it speeds up a little bit more, you can see it moves off rather fast, off toward the east. But the profile is still there. You can still see those sharp lines. Go back to this part in here and pause it really quick to show you. You can see, like right up in here as well. This is another part of whatever that was, the structure, whatever it was, right there. And you can see some of the profile of it right up in this part too. But these sharp lines like this, that's not nature. That's whatever this was as it came in and hung out there for a little bit was clearly you know in the upper atmosphere, but not out of reach of the cloud deck, where the cloud deck and condensation was forming around it. And again, you can see right up in here, there's more sharp lines right there, where it's actually the cloud structure and the cloud deck coming through from that location probably is what just highlighted it up there. It was trying to just sneak through, and the heat from it and frequencies and everything from it disturbing that atmospheric layer and the atmospheric river over there. It couldn't hide. But you could see the sharp lines, and right up in through here as well, you can see what looks like a shadowing effect or something from a propeller of some kind or a prop of some kind. So whatever it was, it headed off toward the east, and it's really interesting that there's been all of these wicked storms and things that have been, kicking off over that way. And the ice storms up through Michigan, there were several of the military, not just the military planes, that were doing the loops over northern Michigan a few days ago before that big ice storm came through. But there was also one of those balloons that was drifting up at about 62,000 feet, according to the flight tracker radar. So it was a balloon almost right directly over Lake Michigan. And yeah, Lake Michigan is on the west side of Michigan, and Erie is over by the Pennsylvania side, and then Superior is up top. So yeah, it was almost right square over Lake Michigan. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was something over there that was influencing the water off of Lake Michigan and drawing it up and then applying their ice nucleization process that, contributed to that winter storm. But yeah, I don't know, folks. This is most definitely not the first time I've seen these things coming and drifting up over the Hoover Dam area. I got dozens of videos showing different things drifting over the Hoover Dam area, but some were a little bit more obvious, like that big black object that drifted over that way. But it's interesting to hear more channels and more influencers, if you want to call them that, talking about geoengineering and cloud seeding and SAI, stratospheric aerosol injections, and all that stuff right now. There, it's moving in. There it is. And I don't know. Seriously, some days it's really, really frustrating because I still get those, tools on some of the comment sections and stuff. I've had to delete a few comments just because it pisses me off. How can you be so ignorant to think that they wouldn't be deploying these types of technologies like this? I mean, we're talking about the Star Wars program, in the 80s, but prior to that, there was lots of talk about arming our aerospaces. It's been a big talk with the military industrial complex for decades. And I realize too that there are a lot of people that don't believe satellites are real, and I think that there's kind of something to that. I don't think that there's as many around up there as they say, but I think that at this point in time, they are testing newer propulsion systems, and I think they're playing around with a lot of electromagnetic energy, which is influencing our upper atmosphere and the frequencies and things that are being beamed around. But something like this, I mean, we're elevated up here. We're up in the high desert. So I have a little bit of a different view of, the sky out here as opposed to, the lower elevations. So I think when some things come drifting up over here, there is such an intense reaction with the frequencies and the energy that's down here at ground level with whatever is moving above us, that it has created this and helped contribute to this heat dome effect that we get, where we had 123-degree days last summer, and I think we're in store for that same thing again, because I swear they're beaming us now. I swear they're contributing to that frequency pollution. And then when these types of things like this come over, and the military planes, when they come over, they're constantly bouncing energy, back and forth. They're constantly beaming us with energy and frequencies and stuff. And I think it gets concentrated up here because it's not really dissipating out and around as far as what it normally would on the lower elevation. Because by the time it reaches a lower elevation, a lot of it has been dissipated as well. And there's a lot of different things that can interfere with those frequencies that help mitigate the effects. So I think there's a more profound effect going on here. I've been having some weird ass dreams lately too, y'all. Let me tell you that. So a couple of them kind of borderline nightmarish. I mean, the one was just absolutely nightmarish. But whatever this was, I don't know. I thought maybe it might have been possibly hovering over that way because it was charging. You know how we have wireless chargers for phones and shit now for our devices. It can wirelessly recharge something without having it really touching anything, even just hover it over there. I mean, look at the technologies we have as far as chip readers and different things like that. There's a certain amount of energy that's generated and transferred when those things occur, when those transactions are happening. So again, because I'm repetitive, I'll say it again. When they drift certain things over and they fly certain things over our location here in the high desert, there's communications going on. There's frequencies being, emitted, and they're having to communicate with all of the 5G cell towers and all of that stuff too. So there's a heavy amount of frequency pollution. And we had, shortly after I first moved here, they put in some new high powered lines. I've got a couple of different videos showing them uh, towing the line workers around on the bottom of a tether of a helicopter going back and forth and building newer, extra large, electrical towers and stuff like that over that way too. So, you know, could very well have been something drifting over there and charging up, and then it moved on toward the east and wreaked havoc under the storms. I don't know. I'm just all I can do is speculate, right? Because I can't prove any of it. But I mean, just keep a heads up, folks, because I don't think that they're going to let up. I really don't think they're threatened too much by RFK Jr. and the people that he has working with him. I think if anything, probably somebody like Dane Wigington from Geoengineering Watch would probably have more of an intimidation factor against some of these people that are doing these things. But I did hear that there was some new lawsuit or something against David Keith and a couple of them other scientists, some atmospheric scientists that were at those hearings that were, standing up for geoengineering and SAI and all this shit. So maybe there could be something coming out of that. But I think myself personally, the first thing that needs to be done is the gag order needs to be lifted. There needs to be somebody somewhere, some judge or someone somewhere that can get something done about that, to have the gag order lifted off of our meteorologists, because there are a lot of meteorologists that would like to blow the whistle, but they know their career and everything that they've worked for is completely over, And we're not just talking about meteorologists, though. We're talking about atmospheric scientists and atmospheric engineers and people that have been working with this stuff and geoengineering and everything for a couple decades in their career, that have wanted to come out and say, you have to stop doing this. You have to stop doing that. You have to stop putting these things into our environment because it's having, harmful effects. And here's the study to show it. Oh, okay, well, we'll take that study, and then they classify it. That needs to stop. And I think, there's a lot of whistleblowers out there that would really like to come forward and blow that whistle, but they're absolutely terrified, and I don't necessarily blame them. But at some point, though, there you have to put some kind of responsibility on the meteorologists and the people that are on our freaking TVs every morning and all day long on the Weather Channel telling us that it's everything's okay. That's all just global warming, just climate change. You know, I'm not denying climate change, but what I'm saying is, will we ever really know that what they're doing? If they would have not done what they've done, would we have had all of these wicked storms? Would we have this disruption in our atmospheric river to the extent that we have, minus 30 degrees in Michigan and 80 degrees in Kentucky? You know what I mean? It's like a day after tomorrow shit where there's this huge wall across the entire United States where one half is frozen and one half is burning up in hell. If they hadn't been influencing that for the last 8 decades, since the 1940s, would it be that way? If they hadn't have continually tried to blow a freaking hole in the firmament with nukes, you know, would things be a little bit different? I don't know. At some point, I think I did read in some of those studies and some of those work groups that they did with NOAA that once you get to a certain point, if you stop, the effects from you stopping is like worse than it could ever be. Kind of like the people that have to consult with their doctor before stopping taking a medication because the effects of stopping the medication is worse. And you have to wean yourself off of it type of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I do also know and pay somewhat attention to the sun flares and solar flares and things that they announce that are going off. And I have noticed that there seems to be some level of a correlation when they do the really heavy spraying and the days when they really, really spray us down real heavy with solar activity. So is it possible they're trying to mitigate the effects of, these so-called solar winds and stuff by using these types of techniques? I don't know. Well, if they're doing stuff like that, it's probably classified. But I don't know, folks. Just stay mindful because I don't think that RFK Jr. is going to have much of an influence and effect on something like this because it's been going on for so long. And I don't know. My throat's getting itchy like RFK Jr., so I think I'm going to end this video. Just stay mindful and keep a heads up, folks. And know that I appreciate you and that you matter very much to me.